All right, so let's look at this example. We've got three sides, and they want us to find the measurement of angle R. So I need to find angle R right here. Now, if I look at this right here, can I use law of sines? Why not? Because I don't have what, I'm sorry? Well, remember that if I look at opposing pairs, do I know both the angle and the opposite side in any of those three cases? No. Like if I look at angle R, I don't know what R is. In fact, I'm looking for it. I do know the opposing side, but I need to know both. So that's why here I cannot use law of sines. So I need to proceed to law of cosines. Now, before you start doing law of cosines, you need to identify which angle they're looking for and the opposing pair. In this particular example, they're wanting for you to find angle R, so that's why I have this opposing pair. Now, once you've identified the opposing pair, this is from your formula. If you look at the formula over here, that's going to be this angle and the side over here, the outer ones. Okay, so let's go back to the example, and so that you kind of helps you set up the problem, what we do is we kind of label this as the hypotenuse. And again, make sure that you understand the quotations. I'm letting you know there are there because it's not really a hypotenuse in terms of your standard right triangle. It's just there to kind of help you set up the law of cosines. Okay? And then that means that this one is the leg and this one is the leg. So don't think, whenever you label this, the hypotenuse, in terms of these regular triangles, I don't want you to think that it's always going to be the longest side. You can see that in the hypotenuse of a right triangle, it's always the longest side, but not necessarily here. So make sure you understand those quotations. So now if I kind of proceed to doing Pythagorean theorem, I know that the hypotenuse squared, which is 23 squared, should equal, a squared plus b squared, or the leg squared, 18 squared plus 37 squared minus, and this is where, it changes from Pythagorean theorem to kind of this law of cosines, and you're going to say minus 2 times whatever basically you had here, these two sides, which ends up being the two legs of, I'm sorry, yeah, the two legs of these right triangle, in quotations, of course. So it's going to be 18 times 37, and then cosine of the angle between these two sides right here, which is a variable. You can call it x, or we can just call it r. Now this one gets a little bit tricky because it does involve me having to solve for r. So eventually I need to kind of isolate or use your algebraic skills to kind of get rid of the other stuff around it, so to speak. So now here, what's 23 squared? So on your calculator, what do you get? Okay, 529. What's 18 squared? 324 plus, okay. And then just be careful here. I'm going to do this in my calculator minus 2 times 18 times 37. So minus 1,332. Notice how this one, this term right here, has attached or has the times cosine of r. So be very careful when you're kind of simplifying this. When you're simplifying this right here and this right here are the only like terms. The 1332 has that times cosine attached, so you can't really simplify, or you can't really combine it with these two. So go ahead and combine these two. and tell me what you get. 1,693 on which one? I got 324 plus 1369, 1,693. So just be careful. All right, so be careful here. Again, that 1,332 is attached to cosine. It's like if you have this example. If I were to say, 5 minus 3x, can you say that this is equal to 2x? Like, in other words, can I do 5 and take away the 3 and then just put the x? No, that doesn't make sense for us to do that. So just be careful here. Don't combine these two. That's where students get very confused. That cosine of r is still attached to this number. So I need to get rid of this one right here. So it's this one's positive 1,693. So let's go ahead and subtract 1,693 and subtract 1,693. That way this goes out to 0. And now tell me, what is 529 minus 1,693 on your calculator? Negative, right? Okay. So I have this right here. And notice how this is 0, but now I still have minus or negative 1,032 times, forgot the 2, times cosine of r. Now, remember that ultimately I want to solve for r, so I need to get rid of that times negative 1,032. So how do I get rid of times, or undo times, or the inverse? Yeah, divide by negative 1,332, divide by negative 1,332. That way you can see that this divides out to 1. You're going to be left with cosine of r, and you could simplify this fraction if you wanted to. What is negative 1164 divided by negative 1,332? First of all, what's a negative divided by a negative? A positive. Do you guys get this? I got that on my calculator. I just did negative 1164 divided by 1,332. I'm just going to leave it out as a fraction. I would suggest you leave things in fractions, even though they may be, really large numbers, but that's fine. If you use decimals, you're going to start getting uh, errors or rounding errors. All right, so do you guys remember this kind of problem? I'm going to, reflect this so that its cosine of r is equal to 97 over 111. Back from regular trig, if I was looking for an angle, which by the way, the direction says find the measurement of angle r, I forgot to mention that if you're looking for an angle, finding an angle, what do you use? Inverse trig, good. So now how do I get rid of this cosine? What do I have to use? That inverse trig, so I'm going to have to say cosine inverse, or inverse of cosine with the negative 1 on both sides. That way these two cancel. Now once again, this is the exact answer for r right here that you see the equal sign. Just let me box in all the way to r. But I want the approximation using your calculator. And this is where it's very important that you do make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. Okay. I'll put it up right now, but let me figure this out. It's going to be r cosine, or the inverse of cosine. Did you guys get this? 29.088. So I'm going to say 29.09. and it is degrees. So once again, note the difference. One is the exact answer, one is an approximation. Uh, and again, you want to make sure that you're in degree mode. So make sure that on your calculator, if you didn't get that 29.08, just make sure that it does say degree on your calculator.